Welcome to episode 6 of the 6-part series on self-care consistency. We have been running with consistency with licensed acupuncturist, functional nutrition counselor, certified personal trainer, and author of Fuel Your Engines, Michel. So we have covered so many crucial aspects of self-care over the last few months, all with clear information, action points we can take immediately in order to make these golden years amazing. And yes, we all can make these years amazing. So if you haven't listened to any of the other 5, you can find them all on the archive of my podcast, which is on my website, but also on whichever podcast provider you're tuned into now. So today we are ending in beauty with a topic which I find we don't talk enough about and which has a lot more of an impact than we know. And that's the gut-brain connection and how digestion impacts mental and emotional and energy. And I'm one who struggles with that. I try different things, and I am very aware that for lots of things, my stomach, my sort of digestion, my how I feel down there really does cause how I feel, how I act, and so basically how I turn up in this world. So let's go into that in a way which actually helps us to, first of all, understand what it is. What is this connection? How is that even possible? And then what can we do about it to indeed really glow and thrive during these years? So if you haven't listened to any of the other 5 of our episodes, I will ask Michel to just very rapidly situate herself. Why is she here with us today sharing what she's sharing? Over to you, Michel.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Julie. It's kind of hard to believe that we're at the end of the 6-part series. I think we've delivered some really important information, some great value to the listeners. And so again, if anyone wants to go back and take a look at some of those earlier episodes, that'll really kind of help you kind of get a bigger picture of what self-care is and why it's important now and for aging. You know, I've been a practitioner for the past 20 years focusing on women's health. And the thing that I know is that many busy working women, executives holding down a big job, taking care of family, older relatives, managing a lot of things, but we just don't get the consistency with those self-care practices that we know we need for ourselves. And so that's what this series has been about. How do you actually get some momentum with those practices? Those key practices. We all know we need exercise and stretch and eating more nutritious food, getting better sleep. How do we get some rhythm around all of that? And then how do we keep it consistent amongst all the other big obligations and activities that we have to manage in our lives? So we spent a lot of time early on talking about what are the basics of health and wellness. I call those the foundation of health and wellness, like sleep, exercise, stretching, making sure we're sleeping better, making sure we're hydrated, having a strong or having a balanced blood sugar, having good stress management skills in place, and then also strong digestion. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that stress digestive. And we've also talked about how do we shift our thinking a bit and get to be able to utilize the behavior change strategies that professionals use in lots of other areas and industries, certainly in athletics, but also in coaching for CEOs and high-level executives. How can we just employ those activities, those ways of thinking, marry those with the self-care foundation so that we make it easier for us to be consistent and have a plan, a structure for ourselves that then allows us to have the levels of mental and physical energy that we're looking for.
I love that. And I love the fact that you make it easy for us as well by having these, bite-sized, very approachable, as in you talk our talk. You're not throwing all these mega complicated words out there. There's always simple tips that all of us can put in. We're not talking about going out and buying all these mega expensive products and stuff, though maybe you're going to talk about that today, but so far we haven't. How do we actually go forward with this? And we all can. Come back to that book you wrote, about fueling your engine. I'm also thinking if we're not doing that, how can we expect to turn up. We're not going to feel happy. We're not going to have the energy levels. We're not going to feel good about ourselves. So we're probably not going to make people around us feel good. It really changes everything. And for those who haven't yet done it, I would really recommend taking Cara Michel's free self-care quiz. I did it myself, and I really was bowled away by the value of what came back about how deep on so many levels it went. I was a bit like, wow. So if you think you're doing a good job, but want to really check whether maybe there are some of the boxes that you haven't ticked properly, I surely recommend you just click on it and do it. And all of these things are just simple things that we can all make 5 minutes in order to do, right? We're worth that. Right.
Absolutely, we're worth it. Yeah. And it's so easy to think that we're doing the right things for ourselves, but the proof is in the pudding. And we all know that when it comes to self-care, what matters the most is how you feel, right?
Right.
So if you're waking up still feeling groggy and tired, or you're reaching for coffee or sugar in the middle of the day, or you're irritable, you don't want anybody to talk to you after work in the evening, then maybe that is an indicator in itself that you want to dig in a little bit deeper. And that's why the quiz was designed as an opportunity for women to kind of get an assessment, a quick assessment. It takes about 5 minutes to do the quiz, so that you can better understand where are you on the spectrum,
Yeah.
what might be missing, so that you can
Yeah.
figure out what to put in place. And once you take the quiz, you get a free opportunity to sit with me to talk about what showed up on the quiz and what are some good solutions on moving forward.
Yeah, and one of the things as well is that a lot of us are a little bit arrogant, 50 plus. We're a bit like, well, I've had the past 50 years to work it out. And then suddenly you hit perimenopause, menopause, whatever. And the stuff you've been doing so far isn't working. That hit hard. I'd really worked out what worked well for me, not just what other people were saying to do, but what worked well for me.
Yeah.
And suddenly that wasn't working anymore. And I was putting on weight and feeling sluggish and getting all sorts of irritations on my face. And yeah, it was very confusing. So I find if we have a chance to actually talk with someone like, okay, where do I stand? What's the basic here? Then we should certainly go for it. Right. So we were talking about that gut brain connection. So maybe we start with our brain is up here and our gut is down here. What's this connection thing?
Yeah, a professor of mine said this statement that really stuck with me, that what happens in the gut doesn't just stay in the gut. It actually travels throughout your body and influences our mood, the functioning of our brain, how we're able to function, focus, whether we're being patient, or it actually influences our physical and mental resilience, right? So it's a very big player. It doesn't always get a lot of attention. And when it does, it is often talked in the form of products, which I'm happy to chat a little bit about today. But what I want folks to leave with today is an understanding of how the digestive system works on a basic foundational level, and then understand how they can influence it with the other 7 foundations without having to add a lot of external things to it. Certainly there are products that you can use, but if we can take care of it with our sleep and our hydration and our stress management and our nutrition, then we're already working on those other systems, and we just need to make a few tweaks so that it supports gut health.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're not allowed to mention any products. It is interesting, and there is an awful lot out there. You go into any healthcare store and say, I'm feeling tired and sort of I'm constipated all the time or whatsoever. And there's just so much out there. You're never sure if you're doing the right thing or if it's just a marketing move. So, okay, there is a connection between our gut and our brain. I understand the bit about obviously what we eat and digest then gets broken down into energy that we use. So, for example, if you're feeling very
Yeah.
tired, maybe we check I don't know, I'm just saying anything, our iron levels or whatsoever. But so there is a direct link with your brain.
I think it's useful to just start with, why is it important that our brain works at a
Yes.
high level? This might be preaching to the choir here for anyone who's listening in. They probably are already thinking this way, but just to state the obvious, our brain is like the CPU of a computer. It's going to relay the information from our emotions. It's going to bring in information from what we feel, what we see, what we smell. It's going to help us to integrate information that's coming in through our eyes So it's all got to filter through that, and then it turns into an action for us. How do we speak? What kind of tone do we have? How do we use our body? How do we interpret the information and then be able to share it and explain it to other people? So being how our brain works is essential for living a high value life, living a life that's full of connection and joy and fun and adventure, all the things that we all want to have in our lives. We have to have a properly high level functioning brain in order to have those. So that's the purpose of this conversation, is to understand what are the connections in our body that are going to influence that, and definitely how your gut or your microbiome is situated is going to be a direct influence over how you're feeling. Look, many women have had this experience where they're feeling bloated or they're constipated or they're feeling, some agitation down there, or maybe they're having acid reflux, right? Or their stomach feels sour, all of those kind of things. And then they just feel blah, right?
Yeah.
They just can't remember the details. They can't pull together all of the pieces to organize for a meeting or a PTA situation or whatever it might be, right? Like they're just really struggling trying to think clearly.
Yeah, the fog.
Brain fog,
Yeah,
absolutely.
something then we can do about it. Because I think a lot of us also feel like, okay, well, yes, that's one of the sides of menopause, brain fog. Sorry, everybody, if I'm, not operating. But there is stuff we can do, right? We don't have to accept all of these things. And it's not just the menopause. I think we also hide behind that topic a lot because we also have moments when we don't focus and all the rest when we're not in menopause. And that is directly linked then to what our digestion system is saying to the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it might be useful to kind of just go through the digestive system really quick
Please, yes.
to kind of set the tone so that we understand the different parts that are involved here. So the digestion actually starts in the mouth. You have enzymes like amylase. There's a bunch of different ones in there that start to break down carbohydrates, and you start to chew up your food. That's the intention with the teeth are to be able to break down whatever it is we're putting in there in small enough pieces so that the next layer of digestive, the nutrients are then carried out into the bloodstream. And so that's the purpose of eating, is to get those nutrients we need out to the different cells in our body. So chewing our food is the first step with the digestive system. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out to eat and seen someone with a hamburger they can barely get their fingers around. Take one bite, chew twice, and then big swallow. That person's going to have a tricky time digesting that. They're going to feel bloated. They're going to feel a stomach ache, all of those kind of things. But they might just think that it's normal because this is just how they feel after they eat, because they don't take the time to chew their food.
And we're not being our own best friend, right? We're not helping our body. We're just throwing this chunk of something or other at it.
Yeah.
What a shame then, because the feeling in your mouth is gone within 2 seconds, whereas, what you could have got out of it if you chewed properly. I mean, I'm terrible at chewing. I don't swallow hamburgers in 2 bites, and I don't eat hamburgers, but I don't chew properly. I see it clearly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're in a hurry, lots of us, right? We're busy, and we couldn't grab something to eat.
That's right. We're constantly rushing around throughout the rest of the day. So when we sit down, we're still in that rush kind of mode, right? So we have to be conscious to slow down, take our time, put your fork down, put the burger down in between bites so that we can slow down. I'm as guilty as anybody else. I'm a little more aware of it because I'm practicing, taking my time, because I will really not feel well after I eat if I don't. So just noticing that if you're not feeling well, there's probably something going on. So if we can just kind of think back to how did things go, that'll give us a clue. So once we chew our food, it goes down through the esophagus and it drops down into the stomach. The stomach is like a little pouch, and it should have a certain amount of what's called hydrochloric acid there. So if you don't, and most midlife women, especially those who are busy with a lot going on, it's really easy to not have enough hydrochloric acid there. Top reasons why you might not, your body is just not going to produce enough With age, we stop producing as much as we need anyway, right?
Oh, can you test that or?
Yeah, so I'll tell you 1 second for sure. That's a great question. So, top reasons, just aging. If you are a smoker, if you drink a lot of alcohol, take in a lot of sugar, or you have a high stress life, your body's going to produce less of it. So, that's almost all of us has at least one or two of those that we can check off. But let's take that hamburger idea. If you take the bite of the hamburger, chew it a few times, and drops down in your stomach, if the acid isn't there, then what happens? The food sits and it rots and putrefies there.
Ew.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you throw a banana peel in the trash and you come back a little later and you smell the banana.
It's
That's
like
the gases
fermenting,
being
right? Yeah.
released. Yep, gases are being released as it just kind of rots there in the trash. So the same thing happens in our stomach, and that's where we get that bloating, right? Our stomach's
Mm.
filling with gassing. A lot of times you have belching, so that'll come along with that, right? So if you're feeling really extended after you eat or you're belching a lot, then that's a good sign that you may not have enough hydrochloric acid.
Okay.
Yeah. So from there, the acid should break down your food so that when it moves to the next stage, which is the small intestine, you get a little bit more digestion that happens there with pancreatic enzymes that shoot over there. And then you also get bile that comes over from the gallbladder that breaks down fats there for us, hopefully good healthy fats. And then from there, it gets shuttled out into the bloodstream, those nutrients, so that we can fuel the cells, the 30 trillion cells that our body is really made of. It gets all of those, that vitamin A and B and K and all of those things, D's, that we know that we need for ourselves. So from there, anything that's left over is taken care of in the large intestine, and that's where the last little bit, maybe a little bit of the nutrients are extracted, but mostly it's just packaging everything up
Yeah.
so that we can get rid of the waste there. So that's kind of the digestive system. It's the only system in the body that is actually open on both ends.
Yeah, nice way to look at it.
Yep,
Yeah, so basically it's doing the work for us. It's taking whatever we choose to put in it and it's using it, right? It's
that,
using it and it's getting rid of what doesn't serve it.
that's it. Absolutely. Yeah. So, when we talk about the gut, a lot of times people, scientists or researchers are referencing the small intestine and the large intestine when we think about the gut itself.
Okay.
And in the gut, you have what's called your microbiome. I'm sure everyone's heard
Yeah.
that term. This is community of trillions of microorganisms that live in our gut. They're little bugs that live there that break down any of the nutrients that we are taking in, anything that's there, we feed those with fiber, and they are now sending signals back up to the other organ systems. And one of those super important systems is our brain. So the gut
Ah,
literally communicates, the health of the gut communicates with our brain.
whoa.
Fascinating system.
Wow. It is. So indeed, there is quite a bit that we can do to help it. So the first one I've already written down for myself is start with the mouth, right? Chew, chew, chew.
Yep.
Put your fork down or put your food down, not any of this, gulp, 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 gulp.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's being sure that we have enough hydrochloric acid in the stomach. So that's
Sure.
checking, what was it? Smoking, alcohol, sugar, and stress.
If we know those things have been a part of our life for a long period of time, then we should suspect that we may have a little bit less hydrochloric acid there. So a great test for that. We talked about the bloating or belching. Those are signs and signals that you may be low on hydrochloric acid. A great test is to actually add a little more acid to your stomach. And you can do that very easily with some apple cider vinegar.
Oh,
So you may take 1 or 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar along with maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons of water. I like to make a little cocktail. I'll put a little bit of liquid stevia, 1 or 2 drops in this concoction, and maybe a little bit of lemon. So I make myself a little bit of
oh.
a lemonade shot, and then I'll knock that back before or during my meal.
And is
When you
that every meal? Every day?
I try to do that pretty regularly. Yeah. But you can
Oh.
just do it once. You can just try it once. What I'm explaining now is a test to see how do you feel when you add a little more acid to your system.
Ooh.
So you can do that. Let's say you do that right before you have your lunch. You go ahead and eat, and you notice, do I still have that bloating? It'll change how you feel right away.
And it also helps with breaking down fat?
Not breaking down fats.
Not
Not
breaking
breaking
down
down.
fats.
That's bile that's coming from the liver is going to do that.
So
But
it's
this is
bloating
just
feeling.
any foods that you're putting into your system, like carbohydrates or fruits, meats,
Mm.
all of those kind of things. It's going to help break them down more so that the rest of the system doesn't have to work so hard and strain so hard to manage the food that you have. You'll notice it right away.
And there's no danger, ulcers or too much acidity in the
Well, I
stomach.
wouldn't do this if you've had a diagnosis of an ulcer, for
Yeah,
sure. We're just talking about a tablespoon or two,
so that's
just so
good
that
news.
you
So
can
that
see.
means that people who maybe have been smoking or drinking and maybe don't do it anymore, you can reverse the amount of hypochloric acid in your stomach.
You
It's
can
not so
add
that you're
more
then
to it.
saddled with that for life and you can't do anything. Okay, now
Yep,
that's a very good tip. Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanted to go back up to the chewing part. I'm here in the United States, and when I've traveled to Europe, other places, people tend to slow down when they have their meals.
Yes, yes. A meal is something you sit and you enjoy. Even if you don't have company, you usually just literally take your time. We do try to do that, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. A communal activity. I think that is something that here in America we can certainly learn from a lot of folks around the world to just set it up so that you have some space and room. I even think the actual cooking process starts to get those what hydrochloric
Oh,
acid I
yeah.
have gets my digestive system primed.
Yeah, I guess it's preparing, right? But I
That's
mean, you know
right.
what? Even in places like us here, I know, for example, I'm always finished before everyone at table. Even when I sit and I talk a lot, I'm always finished before everyone else. So even if it is more of a cultural event, the eating, even just your simple meal in the evening, I think we do still need to consciously think, am I helping my body? Am I chewing in a way that I can actually get all the goodness out of the food instead of just blah? Yeah,
Yep.
okay. So we do that. And then the microbiome then, is that something that we can do something about?
Absolutely. Having more foods that are high in fiber is going to be really helpful. Fiber is a food or a fuel for the healthy microbiome there because you can have what's called dysbiosis, which is an imbalance between the healthy, good microbiome and the not so healthy and useful microbiome. So you can actually have bad bacteria there as well.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
think there's always some level of imbalance there. It's never 100% all good, but when those ratios start to shift into the negative, then that's going to throw things off. So, a lot of times when people are having surgery or if they're going to have some
Oh,
antibiotics,
yes, that's I remember. Yeah.
yeah,
Because it
so
kills everything, right?
yeah, antibiotics, they're going to kill off a lot of the good biotics. So a lot of times people will have prebiotics and postbiotics. All of that combination, that all we're trying to say is that we're trying to feed the good back microbiome there, right? So that you
And
can
is
get
that
back
that's
to
also
a
what's
healthy
in
balance.
fermented food, right? Like sauerkraut and kefir,
Yep,
right?
absolutely. Yep, sauerkraut, kimchi, any fermented
Kimchi. Oh,
food.
yeah.
So, kefir, you can have water or milk kefirs. All of those types of things have natural, because of the fermentation process, they have good microbiome benefits to add that to our system.
So you just need to sort of make a point to take some every day, I guess.
Yeah, it could be as simple if you're a sauerkraut kind of person. Maybe it's on your salads because your
Oh, yeah.
salads, when you have lots of carrots and celery and sweet potato and all of those kind of things, they're going to have good fiber there already. And you might just have a couple forkfuls of that in your salad. I have friends and colleagues that just they walk by the refrigerator and take a forkful of the sauerkraut on its own as a little quick snack and then move on with the day. So many different ways.
Because I like what you're saying about fiber as well, because I think a lot of us associated fiber with like brown bread and bran and all that, but there's a lot which is purely plant-based, right? Where you don't need to have all the other things that come with it.
Yeah,
Well, what would
absolutely.
be the top five fiber food?
Certainly, I think that grains can be great. I tend to lean more towards the quinoa or oats, like
Mm,
old-fashioned oats
I
or
love
steel
old-fashioned
cut
oats.
oats are going to be great there. Certainly, avocado is going to have a lot of
Oh,
great fats in there, but also it's going to be full of fiber. You're definitely going to get a lot of fiber from your greens and your carrots and your sweet potatoes. So there's all of those foods are going to have a lot of great fiber in them.
okay. Those are important things for us to know, especially if we're often looking at weight control as well. Just eating a lot of starchy stuff, which also we think has fiber in, isn't going to help. This is incredible. This is really, I mean, these are really tips that we can do right now, right? And
Put
that we can
together
just
right
implement.
away.
They don't
Yep.
cost a fortune, they're all healthy. And so that will give the signals that we want to give. Anything else you would like to add?
Sure, absolutely. We certainly want to stay hydrated. Being dehydrated is going to really change how your entire digestive system works, but also that microbiome needs a certain amount of hydration there.
Yeah,
That is going to be super important for proper elimination, and you certainly need a lot of water in your blood, right? So
right.
that it can carry those nutrients
Yeah,
around. So when you're
yeah.
dehydrated, you're going to slow down how many nutrients you can have access to. And one other piece that's going to be really important, but people don't often think about, is movement.
Oh, yeah.
Regular
Yeah.
walking, exercise, stretching is going to be extremely important for a healthy digestive system.
Because it makes it all move, right?
It
It
makes it
gets the
all
blood
move.
flowing down there as well.
That's
I mean,
right. That's
these are
right.
just these can be life changers, right? So
Yeah.
instead of getting all confused in all the, I mean, I guess there are great supplements, and I guess for those who do want to look into it
Yeah.
more in detail, they reach out and have,
I'm happy to
you said
talk
there
to
was a free
anyone who wants to
one-on-one, right? You even said,
have a
and that's very
one-on-one about any
generous of you.
products.
Yeah, exactly. So then we can really target it. We're not talking about, I mean, I know that lots of us feel like, oh yeah, but I've got a whole family or whatsoever. It's really hard to change everything. We talk about drinking a
Yeah.
lot of water that any of us can do anyway,
Yeah.
chewing and sitting down, which is not going to disrupt anybody in the family, unless you're a very noisy chewer. And we're talking about things like the fermented things where we can just take a mouthful of kefir and a forkful of sauerkraut. And I love that idea. I'm going to try it straight away. Apple cider vinegar. I have some here, and I'm going to make sure before I have my dinner tonight and see, as you say, we all need to test it out.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. Julie,
Recipe.
if I could end with this, we talked about at the very beginning of this episode, I wanted to make the point that the seven foundations of health and wellness, they all play off of each other and support each other. So you see how being fully hydrated, eating nutritious foods, exercise, how those three things are going to support a healthy digestive system.
Right.
You
And that's
see?
the thing, right? We're miraculous beings, right? Our body is so cleverly put together. All we need to do is check what and how we're putting in our body so that it can do all of this miraculous stuff. And you have outlets. So go back, for those of you who haven't listened to them, check the different pillars. I mean, there's really everything there. There's how to do it, how to get yourself back on track when you feel you've let yourself down. There's all different aspects that you can think of in order to self-care, right? It's looking after ourselves, and it doesn't take hours. It's not selfish. It's what we need to do so that our body works as best as it can, and our mind, of course, everything together, so that we can thrive and contribute to others.
That's right. That's right. It's all about relationships. We're stressing and taking care of so many things because we want to take care of the people that we love. We want to push forward the projects that are important to our hearts. And it's just really hard to do that when we're not being our best. And we're going to push and we're going to make sure that things happen anyway. But I just want to leave women with the thought that you can feel good while you're taking care of these important things. And you deserve that opportunity. You deserve to be able to give that opportunity to yourselves.
Exactly. We don't need to be a martyr. We can do it with a smile and feel great about it. Isn't that beautiful? Cara Michel, I'm infinitely grateful for having taken so much time and energy to share over these last 6 episodes, and that's without counting the one or even two I think we've had previous years before. Thank you very much. I wish you and your business all the very best. I encourage everyone to take the free quiz and to reach out if you want more information. You can see how incredibly knowledgeable and down to earth and practical she is. Her free one-on-one talk as well. I mean, we're being offered a gift. Let's take it so we can make our lives a gift. Thank you, Cara Michel. All the very
Thank
best to
you.
all of you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.